When you set your goals high, it doesn't matter if you don't reach them. What matters is that you set a goal. Because you've set that goal, it drives you towards completing it. Set the goal here, maybe you get here. If you'd set the goal here, you probably would have ended up here. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm out here in the garden reorganizing my garden. I got a big garden, and I've decided that a lot of things are in the wrong place, and I got to move a bunch of stuff, and it's an overwhelming operation, overwhelming task. It's a big long list of a lot of things to do, and you know, I think a lot of us gardeners in situations like this, we kind of shut down and go into procrastination mode. We get busy doing little things, and we don't stay with the big plan, and we don't necessarily you know, organize our logistics correctly, bearing in mind that winter is coming, right? We got to get this stuff done within a certain time limit. So what I'm going to do here is just take you around the garden, show you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I've mentioned this in other videos, just a quick recap, and then explain why. You know, I had a moment earlier today where I was just like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Is too much. I've done. Why am I doing? Why did I do this? Why? Right? So I'm going to put you in, you know, share with you how I got to that state and how I talk myself back down out of that state. Because I think this is something a lot of gardeners share. So come on, let's have a look around here. All right, so I got a big old garden, right? And you know, I'm working here, so I'm not. This isn't really, you know, garden tour. This is like behind the scenes, working on it, right? Everything's all over the place. So in my garden, I used to have a fence right here. That way's north, that way's south, okay? There was a fence right here. And so facing south against the fence, I had a couple apple trees, pear tree, cherry tree, berry bushes. And this spring I put this pond here, right? You know, just a natural pond built by hand. And what I realized, I mean, these trees and all this stuff has gotten bigger every year, is that everything I planted in these beds did poorly because of shade cast by the trees. And you can't see it now, but there was a fully grown mature apple tree right there, okay, which I cut down a couple weeks ago. All right, and this is an asparagus garden. The asparagus never really did well because it was underneath an apple tree. And because there was all this like 3-4 foot high asparagus underneath the apple tree, it screwed up the air circulation of the apple tree, so it was always sort of disease ridden. Also, the apple tree was just one of those weird, you know, 5 varieties in one tree, and they were all lousy varieties of apple. So really not, you know, not ideal for where I'm growing. And I also had another apple tree right over there. Right, it used to be an apple tree right here, which I moved. Okay. Anyway, so the plan is to take that apple tree, take my pear tree. I have to get another apple tree because you always got to have 2, and put them all along here in a line, right? So you can see I moved one of them, right? My Sweet 16 tree. I don't know if we killed it or not, but I mean, all the literature says you can move an apple tree in the fall. That if you move the tree when you see all the trees dropping the leaves and changing color and stuff, it should be okay for next spring. So we'll see how that works out. I got it all tethered up here, right? 3 tether points, just you know, because it doesn't have, I mean, we greatly reduce the root structure. You can only take so much, you know, root when you move a tree. So we messed the tree up. Hopefully it survives, right? But this here area where I've got this bed, this bed, this bed, and that one there, this is all going to be, we're going to move the berry bushes here and space them out properly. So this is all going to be berries here. Just a wonderful field of berries. And the idea is that this whole area is just going to be wood chips. Wood chips, apple trees, and berries. Right? So it's sort of like the fruit section. Right? And things that are high, right? Because your berry bushes are like 3-4 feet high, and your apple trees are like 8 feet high, right? That sort of thing. So it makes sense to have them at the end of the garden And that way all this prime real estate over here, this whole line here, okay, can look more like this section with bed after bed after bed. But I think I can fit at least 6 4x10 or 4x8 beds going up here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that sort of thing, right? So that's the master plan. Master plan is also fill in this pond because it's in the wrong place. This is prime growing real estate. It gets really good light, and here I am putting a pond where I get my best light. And the plan is to just fill that in and put a pond here where things never grow that well because this is in the shade, right? That direction's west. There's a big hill here. And so this part of the garden gets about 3 hours less of sun a day than other parts of the garden. It's just not an ideal growing spot. It's a great spot for a pond, and all the water comes down that hill, comes down this way, right? It'd be a great way to control the runoff from the hill. So I can have a little pond here, like a swale, right? And then we'll carry off the water down that way somehow, right? Something along those lines. Or maybe I'll just tie it into this. You know, I've already got a French drain going all the way down, right? It fed this pond. So maybe I can have overflow from this little pond just going down this French drain. That makes a lot of sense since it's already there, right? So this hasn't even begun yet, right? I haven't even begun to turn this into a pond. And before I move all the berry bushes, and I got some raspberry bushes over there to here, I got to get all these gardens out of here, these beds and stuff, put all that wood somewhere. And because these gardens are a little bit above grade, I've been gradually, so I've removed the soil, you know, like 6 inches of good topsoil from this one. There was a bed here, I moved the soil from that one, right? I got to pull the soil out, right? Because it's kind of a waste of soil to just have it, you know, spread around. There's still plenty of good soil, right? But I'll just level this all out. So I got to move the soil out of these. Also, I'm not going to have beds here anymore, right? This bed, that one over there, all going to be moved, which means I got to move all these damn rocks, right? So I've been moving rocks. And I've been moving rocks, and I got to move because I'm going to get out of this rock thing. The rocks are great in some regards, but they really do. Like, I'm going to keep this line of the garden that's all rocks, just because it's so pretty when you walk in. I'm going to keep this, and see, I've moved the big rocks from over there to sort of make this bigger. So I've just decided that I'm going to take all the biggest rocks from over there and move them over here and sort of enhance all of these beds so that when you walk in to the garden, you get this phenomenal visual effect of rocks. So it looks very kind of medieval, right? But then the rest of the beds, I think I'm just going to stick with using 2x6 and stuff like that, because they're just less weedy, right? When you've got these rocks, they look nice and it works, but there's, I mean, if you know anything about permaculture and gardening, little edges like this are always the most productive spots, right? So the weeds want to grow in these little edges here all the time, right? They're just begging. So you're constantly having to weed, you know, these sort of the perimeters of these beds. And so it looks really nice when it's all weeded, but I don't care what you use as a mulch. You're going to have weeds creeping into the little cracks between the rocks because it's just a great place to grow, right? So I'm going to keep this line nice and rocky. I think I'll keep this side here looking kind of medieval, right, with these logs. But the rest, I think it'll just be lumber. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. Because with the lumber on the side, it's just easier to control weeds and that sort of thing. Combination of the lumber beds and the sand pathways, it's not too bad. Anyway, I'm getting bogged down in moving soil and moving rocks. And then I was out here today and I realized that, you know, I probably lost 60 to 70% of my grapes from this grapevine due to something eating them. I don't know what's eating them. Many of my viewers have suggested, based on the way, I've talked about it in other videos, based on the way the grapes look, they seem to be eating grapes but discarding the skins and stuff, that it's a raccoon behavior. It's totally possible. So then I was thinking today, like, well, why the hell do I have a grapevine against a fence on the border of a forest where animals walk by here all the time? I'm basically saying, hey, guess what? There's lots of food here. Why don't you come here and take it all? Maybe it makes sense to move that grapevine. And can you move it without killing it? I mean, look how mature, right? Look how big the canes are. Okay. This is an extremely healthy. This is one plant, and it goes about 20-30 feet that way, and 20-30 feet that way. Espalier type design, right? And I prune it down every March, and it grows an incredible amount of grapes. But half the grapes are on the outside of the fence, half of them are on the inside of the fence. I've got barbed wire here to keep things out, but because the canes go on top of the barbed wire, I think it's no problem for things like raccoons to get over there, right, to figure out a good point of entry. So, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense to have a grapevine here anymore. And so, I mean, this is where I was this morning. I was just like, geez, like, this is like peeling back the layers of an onion, this garden. Like, you know, everywhere I look, I mean, this is a natural thing, especially when you've been in a space for a while. You just, you know, one of those first rules of permaculture is observe, interact, I think it's what it's called. You know, everywhere I look, I just see a bad decision I made that I regret, right? But I mean, sometimes you have to do these things to figure it out, like putting these raspberries here. What's the problem with that? Well, I don't know why, but for some reason, every spring a rabbit seems to get through my fence somewhere, and it cuts every one of the canes off at about 2 feet high, and just basically robs me of a raspberry harvest. Maybe the raspberries should be further in the garden, right? Sort of less visible, observable, noticeable from the perimeter, from the outside the fence. I don't know, right? So, suffice it to say, many things to move, many things to do, lots of rocks. I mean, all these rocks, look at all, these are all rock bordered gardens. It's completely gone to pieces of weeds this summer, because after I got this pond in here, I just couldn't deal with this disaster. All these rocks got to come out. All these weeds have to be dealt with. This pond has to be filled back in. The rocks got to come out of this pond. I got to make a pond over there, take all the dirt out of there, put it in here. I got to move all these bushes over there somewhere after I figure out where I'm going to put all these damn beds. And I got to move those rocks over there and figure out some solution to my drainage problem. You know, and it's like almost November. And it's not for lack of working on it. I come chip away at it all the time, but it just seems to not be getting done. So what do you do in this sort of situation, right? So for me, it's the simplest advice ever, is just put in the time. You know, if you got a spare, when I have a spare hour, come out here. This has always been my way with gardening, because, you know, in the spring you got all these things to plant, in the fall you got all these things to harvest. There's always 1,000 things to do, and you can't do 1,000 things. Right? So what I've told myself is just go out in the garden, do something. You know, if you got an hour, just go out in the garden, tell yourself to do one of the things that has to be done. You know, all these things that have to be done, right? Choose the one that you think all the other things depend on. Get that thing done. If you got a little more time, do something else, right? But just do those things. Just spend an hour, do something. Tomorrow, spend an hour, do something, right? Just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I've set my goals extremely high this fall. I don't know if I'm going to get it all off in time. And it's not the end of the world if I don't. It doesn't matter. When you set your goals high, it doesn't matter if you don't reach them. What matters is that you set a goal. And because you've set that goal, it drives you towards completing it. And even if you don't meet the ultimate goal, if you get halfway there, you're probably going to achieve more. If you'd set the goal at half, you probably wouldn't have got that far. If you set the goal here, you know, if you set the goal here, maybe you get here. If you'd set the goal here, you probably would have ended up here, right? So you set the goal high, right? That drives your time use, your energy, just trying to get stuff done. I mean, we can only do so much. We're only human. We're only mortal. We're doing this all with, I think a guy once called it handdraulics, right? With, you know, just regular body, human power. You can only do so much. And, you know, we all, as we age, we only have so much energy for these things. But if you set that goal high and you keep plugging away at it, that's how I pulled off having a large garden like this. It's just saying, well, I can see what it's going to look like in my head, and I can't make it all in one day, but I'll just keep working towards that. So if you've been watching my videos over the years, there's always something I'm not happy with. There's always something I wish I'd done differently, right? That's just the process. But that's growth, that's development, that's learning, right? So that's the way I see it, right? When I put that grapevine over there, I thought, hey, I can just, you know, use the fence as a trellis and it's going to work, it'll be fine. And now I've got this thing that attracts animals into my garden. It's, you know, once all the foliage is fully developed, it shades my garden. It's like the dumbest place to put a grapevine, but it made perfect sense to 2015 Greg. Right? I thought I was brilliant for putting it there. And now it's 2022 Greg, and I'm like, why did you do that, right? But I had to put it in the wrong place to realize it was the wrong place. So now I know where to put it, right? So, oh, anyway. So as part of the reason I do this channel, as I've always said, is it's almost like advice to a younger version of myself, right? All the things I wish I'd known 10 years ago. That would be a great name for a YouTube channel, because it's kind of the theme. It's called the Maritime Gardening Podcast, but that's not, you know, it's really got nothing to do with being in the Maritimes and gardening. It's more like things I wish I'd known 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was starting out, right? Or even, you know, like 10 years ago, I wasn't just starting out, but there's still a lot I didn't know then that I know now, right? And yeah, if you live on the edge of a wild forest, I don't recommend putting a grapevine against your fence. Probably not the best location for it, right? Also, you can only really pick from one side because the hill slopes away on the other side, so it's just impossible to harvest. And it doesn't matter because everything disappears on the outside the fence anyway. So putting something against the fence only makes sense if you can access both sides of the fence and there isn't wild animals that want to eat the stuff you've got growing on your fence. Anyway, getting off topic here. So, just a video talking about being overwhelmed and how to deal with that, right? Just come out, you know, give yourself a time, you know, if you got an hour, okay, go out and garden for an hour. Just pick 2 things you're going to do and see what you can do, right? And then do it tomorrow. And if you can't do it the next day, fine, take a day off. Just stay with it, see how much you can pull off. Doesn't matter if you don't meet your goal. The point is you are working towards your goal. Maybe you get there, maybe you won't, but over the long run, you'll get somewhere, right? Over the long run, amazing things will happen because you set your goals high. You just got to stay with it. So anyway, I hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast at maritimegardening.com. Check out my weekly column at maritimegardening.substack.com, where I write just garden, you know, articles about everything related to gardening, and I do 1 recipe a month because why are we growing all this food? To cook it and eat it, and it should be delicious when we cook it and eat it. So anyway, check that all out. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.